We go. Welcome to the Mental Health Entrepreneur Podcast. We are here for inspiration and creative ideas to support mental wellness in our communities. I'm your host, Rachel Harrison, and today we are talking to Gina Strauss. Gina is a nature-informed therapist and is a faculty member of the Center for Nature-Informed Therapy Training. Welcome, Gina. It's so good to have you.
Thank you. It's so great to be here.
So, first of all, I want to talk a little bit about nature informed therapy. It sounds very simple, but I feel like there are lots of different types of therapy. I've heard of wilderness therapy, I've heard of forest bathing, and then this is nature informed therapy. Can you talk a little bit about what it is that you do?
Yeah. So nature-informed therapy can really take a lot of can look a lot of different ways. I would say the one thing that really is at the core of nature-informed therapy is we believe that this disconnect between the natural world and us humans
Hmm.
really is the cause or a huge piece of our physical and mental health challenges that we're experiencing today. If we were in person
Hmm.
and we could do a little demonstration, I would ask for 10 people to come up and to hold their arms out side to side and to stand touching fingernails. So you can imagine like 10 people standing in a
Hmm.
line. And if we look and think, okay, that's the timeline of human history. And so if we go walking down the line, person one, two, three, four, five, six, seven, eight, nine, 10, down to the bottom of their fingernail, that is how much time we humans have lived in connection with nature. We've lived outside, we've smelled the smells, we've heard the
Hmm.
birds, we've eaten the plants, we've connected with animals. We've paid attention to the weather, the seasons, all of those things. And it really isn't until that last person, the 10th person's fingernail, that about 200 years ago or so, that we started to live inside and in the fluorescent lights, in the computers, more recently,
Hmm.
wearing shoes with rubber soles. So we're not feeling that, we're eating processed food, like all the things. And it's really kind of done a number on us because we're so disconnected and it's come up in so many different ways. It's affected us in so many different ways. And so with nature informed therapy, there's kind of like a level one, which is kind of as you're mentioning in wilderness therapy and other things, there's our nervous systems react to being in nature. We feel
Hmm.
calmer. It feels good. The smells, the phytoncides that the trees are producing affect our body and calm our nervous system. There's been research studies, a sleep study that what sounds heighten our nervous system and what sounds calm our nervous system, and bird song, water of any rain,
Hmm.
ocean, or wind through the trees calm our nervous system. So there's this element of we calm our bodies calm down in nature, and then with nature informed therapy, I would say the little bit of a difference, and this could be done in other outdoor therapies too. We want to take it to that level of relationship with
Hmm.
nature. Um, and that is through um, kind of a more nature-based, earth-centric, indigenous wisdom of these are our family, these plants, these trees, these animals, nature herself, we call her our co-therapist.
Hmm.
That it's really us, the client, and our co-therapist, nature. And so that's what we're wanting to do as therapists. Obviously, all of us therapists, we want to eventually have our clients be to a place where they don't need us anymore.
Yeah.
And the beautiful thing about nature informed therapy is that we're working to help clients develop that relationship with nature so that we can step out and they can access nature anywhere, really, and be able to have that as a really calming thing, also. But then also to see themselves reflected in nature because we are nature. Like humans
Hmm.
are nature. We've kind of like disassociated ourselves from that and made ourselves more powerful somehow, for many different reasons. But we are nature. And so when we can see ourselves in there, which is very therapeutic and really healing. So it could take a form of doing a walk and talk in nature. It could take the form of meeting at a park and sitting down near a lake or sitting down near some trees. It could even be done in the office. I have a whole basket of nature objects that we use
Hmm.
to, if a client comes in, what object in the basket is really reflecting how your anxiety is feeling today, or how you've been feeling with this, relationship issue or whatever. Um, it could be really the biophilic design of your office where there's plants, there's pictures of nature, there's maybe bird song playing in the background on YouTube video.
Hmm.
There's lots of different ways you can bring that in. Um, or it could be telehealth where you're sitting outside in a safe, confidential place on your computer. So your client sees the background of the trees, or your client could be sitting outside, or taking a walk on their phone, or both. And it could also take uh, it could look the way of, I'm going to prescribe a little bit of nature homework.
Hmm.
So maybe, during this break, you find a little sit spot, somewhere and spend 10 minutes a day just observing, what's happening. And that can be really nice as well because, one of the things that's happened with our disconnect from nature is related to attachment and how we don't have that sense of place attachment. So it's like going into a party where everybody, you feel really good and like you're welcome there and you're a part of it. But yet when we go even sometimes into our backyards, we don't know what the tree's name is or what kind of plant this
Hmm.
is or what this bug is that's crawling on my house or whatever. They've done a study with kids that they can name 100 different logos like Target and Under Armour and McDonald's and all those things, but you ask them like, what is that tree in your backyard? And they don't know. And so sit spot is a great activity where they can just sit and really get to know. If you do that on a regular basis, you can get to know your space around you wherever you choose it to be. And it makes you start to feel connected, which is so important
Hmm.
because so many of us are lonely. There's a lot of studies on loneliness now, which
Yeah.
even got heightened during COVID. So, that's another element too. So I'd say, going back to your original question, I think with nature informed therapy, the premise underneath is this disconnection that we have to nature. And what we're looking to do is to help people reconnect.
Hmm.
And I will say with that too, we all have a thread to nature. And sometimes what clients will come in and say, I don't want to do any of that nature stuff. I don't like nature, right? But usually through the course of working with somebody, you'll see, well, I kind of really like cardinals, the bird, or I,
Hmm.
I like water. I like taking Epsom salt baths, or my dad, used to go fishing with me. And I kind of remember that. Um, and so that thread to nature, when we can help our client identify that, is kind of the way back to the relationship. Yeah.
And you're talking about a
Mhm.
relationship with the earth or a relationship with nature.
Yes, with
Hmm.
the natural world, which in turn is a relationship back to ourselves, right? Because we are nature. Um, yeah, I had and I was just thinking about loneliness. I had a client, and it can be so simple. This is a telehealth client I had, and um, she was living alone, in her 60s and working, and but right at the face of her computer was a sliding glass door, and she had a little squirrel friend that she would give nuts to
Hmm.
every day. And it was this beautiful relationship of every day she waited for that little squirrel to come and they had an interaction every day. And when he wasn't there, she missed him, and when she wasn't there, he missed
Hmm.
her. And it was really beautiful. It was a highlight in her day. And it kind of helped a little bit with that sense of loneliness. And then from there, we can kind of expand on, here's our human to animal connection. Is there ways to work on the human to human connection from there?
Mm.
Yeah. Hmm.
Right. There are a lot of therapies that do that for sure. Pet therapy, equine therapy, that kind of thing.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Hmm.
So, how
Yeah.
did you get started with this work? I mean, as a therapist, you had a lot of choices of the type of work to do. Why this work?
Hmm. Yeah. Even though my family was not very outdoor oriented, I knew from an early age I was really connected to animals, one thing, trees. When I think about my thread to nature, these are my threads: animals and trees and water. And I loved being outside. And so it was kind of like that level one, right? As a kid and a teen and even a young adult, I just felt better in nature. I felt more
Mm.
grounded in nature. And so as I kind of got older and developed as an adult, I started to realize, like, wow, I feel really safe in nature, and I can really watch the seasons and realize like how much connection there is to what's going on with me. We talk a lot in nature informed therapy of meaning and metaphor that we can
Mm.
make and help a client make. I was working with a client in her 40s who was going through a lot of really, really, really heavy things. We were doing a walk and talk, and I'd never seen this before. We saw two little foxes playing, and um, we talked a little bit about the meaning she made from that. And she was like, life has been so heavy for me. Um, this kind of feels like it's reminding me to play a little bit.
Mm.
And like I could have made any interpretation, but it's not my interpretation to make. It was her interpretation to make. And again, that's that we're helping them build the relationship to nature. So it was really beautiful. So I think as I got older, I started to realize there are so many things that I can have nature be, as we would say, like our mirror, our mentor, some kind of offering me some kind of medicine here. So when I got my degree and license, I was a little bit worried that could I find some place or some modality, which nature informed therapy is one. Like there's still other modalities I work with, and it's really easily incorporated to so
Mm.
many things. Even if it is just a biophilic design in your office. But I came upon Dr. Heidi Schreiber-Pan, who is the founder of the Center for Nature Informed Therapy, and we met, and I was a member of her first cohort of the training, the Nature Informed Therapy training, in the June of 2021, and have worked as a nature informed therapist since then. I would say, as a trainer now of the nature informed therapist, which I will say, we do have a huge group of people that have gone through the training who are therapists, social workers, psychologists, counselors. And we're also starting to get a collection of people who are really interested in bringing this work back to their field. So whether it is outdoor education, whether there's
Mm.
teachers, whether there's people in the medical field. More recently, we had an OBGYN who graduated from the program who was extremely excited about bringing this work, this nature-informed lens, back to the women that she worked with. And
Mm.
she's also a professor and wanting to integrate it into medical school, which
Wow.
was very, very exciting. I think people are really finding solace in nature and guidance. And, we like to say, nature is everywhere and for everyone too. So we don't have to be going to a national park or even a local park. You can find nature indoors, even if you're looking out the window, or if there's a plant
Mm.
there, or you take a shower, with the water. And it's very exciting that there's so many people that are bringing this into the work, and all over: addictions,
Mhm.
children, families, grief work, anxiety work, so many different areas. Hmm.
Yeah, that is exciting. And I definitely want to come back to it, but talk to me a little bit about the science. You mentioned something that the trees release that calm our nervous
Yes.
systems.
Hmm. Yeah. So, when we do our trainings, we talk about kind of four areas of research. One is the psychoevolutionary theory, which is kind of what I was referring to when I had the timeline of human history and about how our DNA is really and our bodies are really structured. The sounds that we hear, like the study about the bird song in the water, our senses, our sense of sight, the color green is in the middle of the wavelength of
Mm,
light. And
mhm,
because it's in the middle, it makes it a little easier for our eyes to perceive green and still have extra space. And so, literally, the color green is very relaxing because it's less work. Also, fractals. So, fractals are shapes that are repeated over and over. There's so many fractals in nature. The fern is kind of a good example because each little leaf
mm,
almost represents, a similar spirals. All of those things are really uh, studies have shown that it relaxes us. It relaxes us. The phytoncides, which are the chemicals the trees produce to ward off bugs, actually studies have shown calm our bodies down.
mm,
Earthing is a big term that people have been talking about a lot more, getting more press. That literally there's like an ionic exchange from the earth to our feet, to our bodies it's very relaxing. There's also a lot of research in the area of attention restoration theory, which
mm,
means that when we are in a space that we can be engaged, but with a soft fascination, we're not making our frontal lobe work so hard, like when we're doing emails
mm,
or writing reports. We have to pay attention, but we don't have to like be zoomed in. We can have a soft fascination with the landscape or something. Our brains can relax. It's like having a little bit of a rest. So whether even people just go outside for 5 minutes, take a break from your computer, it it literally just relaxes our brain. Studies have shown this is really awesome too, that of course going out in nature is the most ideal, but even seeing pictures of nature or watching a video of a nature scene produces very similar results to being out in
mm.
nature too. Um, and even more relaxing than other kinds of things like reading a book or watching a movie or something, just some time. Also great with like ADHD. There's been studies showing
Yeah.
that, kids and adults, get so much benefit, so much brain relaxation from being outside. Um, there's also been some scientific studies about awe and gratitude. And so when we experience awe, we get into this state where we are more connected with other people and more generous and giving.
Mm,
So, like if we all watch something together, whatever it is, like a beautiful sunrise or something like that, we we bond. Like it's a bonding experience to witness something together. And when we're in that state of awe, we tend to be more giving and connected. And
mm,
so, of course, we all need that a lot more now, right? Our world needs that. So the places that we find awe, nature is one of those places. It can also be in art or music or birth, death, like those kind of
mhm,
experiences. But
mhm,
nature is a place, again, think of the Grand Canyon, but you can also think of this spider, doing a web right on your window screen. That can inspire awe in people too. So, and I would say the last, so I was psychoevolutionary, attention restoration theory, awe, and then the attachment research, that we
mm,
really can have a place attachment if there is a certain place that in your childhood, or I remember a client talking about these willow trees that surrounded her grandfather's house, like the street of where her grandfather lived in South Carolina. Um,
mhm,
it just thinking about them even brought her to this place of peace
mhm,
and safety. So yeah, and I will say in speaking about that, because she was a client I worked with in Baltimore City, I think there can be this misperception that again that nature has to be out there or
mm,
somewhere in a park or anything. And you know nature really is everywhere. So I worked with a client a group that I was working at Baltimore City with a homeless shelter with women who were recovering from addiction. And this one woman was talking about like the stars. You can see them pretty much just this except for any kind of light pollution and stuff like that, but you can pretty much see the stars. And how she recognized, like she would always look up to that as kind of like an aspiration. And when she
Mm.
started to do some research into stars, she realized, oh my gosh, the stars are made up of the same thing as me. Like I'm actually the same as a star. And it really,
Mm.
the meaning she created from that was amazing. So I would really want people to listening to know, it doesn't have to be. Nature looks so many different ways: clouds, weather, birds, trees, plants. Um, it's all nature, and people can create so much meaning and get so much healing from that.
Mm. I love that.
Yeah.
So
Hmm.
I like this idea of nature-informed therapy, and it makes sense to me how that works like in a therapy office. But what
Yeah.
about people that are taking this to different places? I'm curious, do you have some examples or some ideas of what that would look like?
Hmm. Um, I think that people are bringing it, mindfulness in nature is a big piece. So
Mhm.
whether they add that on to the beginning or end of, whatever program that they might have. I think that the biophilic design, some people, because of regulations, in their field aren't able to work outside with people. So it's bringing
Mhm.
the nature indoors. As I said, the OBGYN, because she has some access to curriculum, is working on changing the curriculum a little bit to bring in some um, kind of like that level one, can we experience nature to calm our nervous system? I mean, we probably all need
Mm.
nervous system calming. And
Mhm.
so whether it's um, you know being mindful of your senses in nature, just sitting like a meditation for 10 minutes. Let's just listen to the sounds, to the smells, to the feel of the wind on our skin. Um, and I'm thinking of some other people. The outdoor education folks, they do have easy access to try out some of these practices.
Sure.
Um, and honestly, too, and I will say this is another thing too, people are really expressing, whether they're therapists or not, this work is so beneficial to their own personal self-care, right?
Mm.
Um, and I think that that's a really big piece of this too, is that they're going even deeper to understanding how soothing this can be for themselves. I've talked to therapists about there's a lot of burnout as a therapist,
It's true.
because of what we do. And so some people have said it kind of almost feels like cheating a little bit, to like do this for my work because of
Mm.
the support of our co-therapist nature. And
Mhm.
so even if people can take it back into their practice where they have a couple plants in the office or have something that feels really good for them in their office or their workspace, and they take their little 5-minute breaks a couple times during the day, it just really enhances their own life as well.
Mhm. Mhm. So you've mentioned level one a few times. There are
Mm.
other levels, I take it?
Well, I guess I meant when I say level one, I'm meaning more like just the base level of what it can do to our nervous system, how nature can help
Ah.
support our nervous system. When I say level two, I kind of mean like um, the meaning we can make and the relationship building, right?
I
Yeah.
see.
Hmm.
I see. Are there
Hmm.
any more levels than that, or just those two levels?
Just those two levels,
Okay.
right? And I think
Okay.
they're very, very wide. They're very long, wide
Mm-hmm.
levels. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And I guess they're two aspects, I guess, not really a levels. I think guess they're two aspects of just the support that nature can provide that our ancestors used to have continually that we got disconnected. Um, yeah. I will say too, there's one other piece, or I'm sure there's other pieces too, but one of the other things that's kind of happened to us And I mention this because it connects to anxiety, which is a big
Mm.
thing that we see as therapists, is because we've been disconnected to nature, we've become a little bit or a lot addicted to comfort. Like we have our air conditioning and heating set on a certain temperature, and we have our drive-throughs, and I put myself, as a Starbucks drive-through person myself. My two daughters are in college now. I remember going to their campus tours and stuff, and there's like this little robot that literally like delivers the food to your dorm room, so you don't even have to get up to go to the dining hall, like those kinds of things. And the
Huh.
technology is amazing, so there's a
Mhm.
lot of amazing things about it, but what it's done, I think, is it's made us intolerant. We can't tolerate distress as much. And so
Mm.
nature can be such a great guide in experiencing distress, whether it's a little bit too cold, it's a little bit too hot, it's safe enough. Like we're not gonna have hypothermia or, have
Mm.
heat stroke. That's the red zone. We don't want to be there. But could we be in the yellow zone of, oh, this is a little bit uncomfortable. Like these mosquitoes are a little bit uncomfortable. Like we're protecting ourselves, but could this hike is a little bit more challenging or whatever it might be. It's really great opportunity, and when we can be in that level of distress and know that we can move past it,
Mhm.
it's a great resilience builder. One of the um, quotes that we use in our training, and I will summarize it, is it's almost like an inoculation. When you get a vaccine or something, you get a little bit of the virus itself
Right.
to build resilience to it. So it's like exposing yourself. And so that's what I would say too is, and we sometimes, especially we talk about children, right? We need to be good role models in ourselves. If it is raining, like, couldn't we still go for a walk in the rain? Even though you
Mm.
get wet. And but what it does is the little bits that we do that, it then can relate to other things too. Like, can I tolerate getting less than an A on my exam, or having this
Mm.
conflict with my friend, or feeling some social anxiety? Can I tolerate that, knowing that it's a step, towards growth? So, that's another element that, again, people can practice on their own, and we can also help clients that you are resilient, and you
Mm.
can tolerate this distress, um, because it's moving you towards where you want to go. Yeah.
Right. I love that. I definitely see that as a need for all human beings because we all have those uncomfortable situations that often lead to growth
Mm-hmm.
if we can tolerate them. Hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So I'm curious, I know the world, there are definitely nature lovers in the world, right?
Yes.
So what would you
Yes.
say is different between doing nature-informed therapy versus being someone who regularly likes to go and do outdoor things?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's a really great question. And it also leads to this important part, which is, just because I may love nature and have really positive experiences does not mean that my client coming in feels the same way. And so
Mm-hmm.
assessment is very important to see where your client is. Maybe it starts with a little activity, even the biophilic design. Then maybe it goes to using nature objects in your office. It's very titrated because people have experienced trauma in nature. Nature is beautiful and nature is powerful too.
Mm.
So it's really important to assess where your client is. Some people have had trauma in nature, whether
Yeah.
it's themselves now or historically trauma in nature. And so assessment is really important with that. Um, I think it's the intentionality of how we go into nature. So, and we even talk about this sometimes, we can go for a hike, right? And get that cardio, and maybe
Mm-hmm.
even be mindful. Um, and we can be very intentional and say, I'm going to go and take a hike or a walk or whatever it might be, with the intention of seeing how nature is my mentor right now. Like, what
Mm.
what can I what can I observe in nature that maybe is a message for me, right? So it's kind of the intentionality of it, and we also, need to hold that for our clients. If we do a walk and talk, we have to be very careful of boundaries with ourselves because it's not a chit chat walk and talk with your best friend.
Yeah,
we're
yeah.
we're therapist and client, and so we can hold that intentionality of, okay, she's been working on this, and let me see if anything kind of comes up that meaning can be made. And so I think that point is really important, right? That it's not just we're just hanging out in nature, but there's an intentionality to the experience.
Hmm.
Mhm.
Hmm. And so these trainings you mentioned are open to definitely therapists, but also non-therapists. So really anyone, are there any qualifications that someone would
Mhm.
have to come to a training?
Yes. So um, anyone can come to the training. If they are a non-mental health professional, they need to do a short mental health first aid training that
Ah,
we provide. It's like an hour training. So they have some background when they're coming.
hmm,
Generally, the people who are coming like have a reason for it, whether they're a naturalist and wanting to kind of just have a little bit more understanding of mental health before they work with people in groups. um, and we have two parts to the training. One is a 3 day in-person kind of intensive training from 9 to 5. People generally, if they're come from out of town, generally stay at the location. And after you complete that, you're considered trained in nature
hmm.
informed therapy. If you continue on with a 3 month mentorship program, which is online and virtual, where you get support from someone trained and doing the work for 3 months and have group meetings and things like that, you will be considered, if you're a mental health professional, be considered certified, a certified nature informed therapist. Or if you're not a mental health professional, certified nature informed practitioner.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's great.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So we're almost out of time, but I want to ask
Uh-huh.
you, what is your vision for doing this work? Is there any kind of ideas you have, things you'd like to see, even if they're pie in the sky?
Mm-hmm. I have a big actually place in my heart for children and families. Um, One group, and kind of women, another group. But I have been a Montessori teacher. Parenting my own two children has been a really important part of my identity, I think. And so I'm really excited to continue to bring this work to work with children, to
Hmm.
families, to parents. How nature is such a role model for parenting. There's actually a really great book I just started reading called The Evolved Nest. And it says nature's way of raising children and creating connected communities. It talks about kind of animal communities and how they raise their young. And so for me, I think parenting and children, there's research that if children have even just one really positive experience in nature as a young child, it lasts their whole lifetime.
Hmm.
And so I really would like to do that. And I'm also really interested in what we can learn from the seasons. There's some I know in traditional Chinese medicine and acupuncture and other things that is based on. There is really a lot of really wisdom in
Hmm.
the cyclical nature of nature, of the
Mhm.
seasons. And so I'm really interested in that too. Um, but it's exciting for me when I talk to the people either in the trainings. We also have like a level, well, this is a level two. We also have I would say, additional trainings in specific topics. So we're coming up with eco art, play therapy. Um, it is full for now, but later this month there's like an attachment and trauma training. So it's kind of like goes a little bit specific.
Hmm.
Um, but it's wonderful. And we also offer events for the general public. So
Okay.
whether there's like an intro to backpacking or a grief, we just had a grief retreat over the weekend where people could come who have experienced some kind of loss. But talking to people who've either have attended these kind of events or are in professionals being trained, it's very brings me so much hope to know that people all over this country and in Canada, and even, we get emails from other countries and other parts of the globe, that this work is being done and people are just really experiencing so much healing. Yeah.
That's awesome.
So I'm excited to kind of stay, yeah, just connected to the field for that reason too,
Yeah.
especially for something that feels really passionate for me.
Awesome. Well,
Yeah.
thank you so much for being here and taking the time. If you want to know more about nature informed therapy, you can check out all the details in the show notes. Thanks so much, Gina.
Thank you.